Ready.
Have a good meeting.
Thank you. All right, we'll call the November 4th Scituate School Committee meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. The Scituate School Committee is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcomed and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. We're going to do a roll call vote since we have Ms. Warkowski remote tonight. Take a roll call vote here. Fenwick?
Yes.
Gates?
Yes.
Brandolini, yes. Lindblom?
Yes.
Warkowski?
Yes.
All righty. Okay, let's start with public comment. Seeing no one remote or in person, we will jump forward to our student report. Jane Ryan.
Hello everyone, thank you for having me tonight. Unfortunately, Jonah could not make it this evening, but I will be doing all the updates. So our first update is for athletics. Congratulations to the golf team, girls soccer team, and football team for all winning league titles. Our teams are on to their playoff games this week and hopefully forward. Some other updates, our homecoming dance is on Friday, October 15th. It was well attended and students had a great time. Thank you to all the students and staff who participated. Congratulations to Kaden Levangie for being recognized for her service, leadership, and patriotism by the Scituate High School faculty. Kaden is now eligible for scholarship money through the Daughters of the American Revolution organization. Also, congratulations to Athletic Director Scott Payne for receiving the 2024 MIAA William N. Gain Jr. Sportsmanship Award. This award was developed by the MIAA Sportsmanship Committee to honor an individual for distinguished leadership and promotion of sportsmanship throughout interscholastic athletics. Scott was selected based upon his leadership, service, and tireless commitment to providing a special interscholastic athletic experience for students across the state. Scituate High School is very proud of him for receiving this award. A second congratulations to Mr. Payne on behalf of the Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association for being selected as the recipient of the 2024 MIAA John Young Distinguished Service Award. They want to share their sincere appreciation for the impact that Mr. Payne has had on students by helping them develop skills and values necessary for their lives. Another award, IXL student Claire Poleski was recognized by the MIAA with the Massachusetts Women Athletics Distinguished Service Award at Gillette Stadium. Claire plays tennis, unified track, and unified basketball. She also loves swimming. And the last unified basketball game of the year was on Tuesday, October 29th. They had an incredible season, and I want to thank everyone involved in making the team happen. On to guidance news. Last week we had College Career Community Day, or 2 weeks ago on October 23rd. School counselors spent the morning working with all 9th grade students. Students used their MEFA Pathways account to explore their own interests, skills, and values as they set goals for the school year. And the counseling department successfully administered the digital PSATs to the entire sophomore class and 130 juniors. Some benefits of taking the PSATs include they help you prepare for the SAT. It connects you to free tutoring through Khan Academy and connects students to colleges, scholarships, and more, helps them explore career options. And based on PSAT scores, students can receive personal recommendations about what AP courses might be a good fit for them. Counselors have met with college-bound seniors to ensure application deadlines are being met. As of October 30th, 100 seniors have submitted to 741 colleges. 741 college applications to 192 colleges. And our final counseling update, college admissions representatives visit are coming to a close this month. We have hosted 24 reps this fall, and many students have taken advantage of this wonderful opportunity. On to some more student feedback. Have same survey from last week. I thought I would share some other responses. So for tell us what you'd like about Scituate High School, 2 responses that stuck out to me were my favorite. We actually had a lot of shout outs to the teachers and staff at Scituate High School. One student said, my favorite part about Scituate High is the teachers. They are all very welcoming and create a friendly atmosphere for students to be themselves in. Another feedback in that category was, I like the freedom we have during periods such as wind block or lunch. Wind block is our roughly 40-minute period after lunch where we can meet with teachers or clubs or so whatever. So we were able to use that time for ourselves and allow ourselves to take a break during that time. For our any positive changes that could be made to the school, one student said that we could do something like Lift after school for all grades. Lift is a program for freshmen where teachers help most freshman teachers meet after school, I think Wednesdays for about an hour and help them with their homework. The student suggested that we expand that to the whole school. And then another response was we could try to pitch Scituate High School to more incoming students because some students are lost to BC High and NDA. I know Scituate has tried to do that in the past, but they still are. So please, and then for our last category, please share one activity we could do to improve school culture. One student said, bring back live music on Fridays. I think that is Mr. McLaughlin with his guitar. But and then another student said, making anonymous kind notes to teachers and students. Each home base could get assignments to write notes to a certain teacher and give kind anonymous notes out to everyone. That was sweet. And then, another student said, more events between upper and lower classmen. Seniors barely know freshmen right now. We had the homecoming dance, but yes, that was. So those are our updates for you guys. Any feedback or questions?
Thank you. That's great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, we have Dr. Rab up next. Our leadership report, budget update for FY26.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I wanted to start providing the committee an update on next year's budget starting now. Our financial forecast committee met on October 10th, and as the committee is aware, the financial forecast is a mechanism here in Scituate where members of the school committee, members of the Board of Selectmen, advisory, assessor's office, treasurer's office, finance director's office, and town and school administration are able to get together on a regular basis to look at the budget and make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of budget situation. For FY26, right now, the financial forecast is looking at an $895,000 increase for the schools. And while that may seem like a lot of money on the surface, it's a 1.8% increase and only a little more than half of what we received last year. So last year we received closer to $1.7 million, a 4% increase, which was fantastic. This year we're only looking at about a 1.8% increase. And that makes it particularly difficult in a year when we're negotiating with all 6 unions. And I have to be very careful about what we say publicly because I don't want to compromise the negotiating position of the school committee, but I do want to make it crystal clear that next year is going to require a little bit of belt tightening. And as we met in financial forecast, there were 3 factors which caused the decrease. The first is a change in federal and state law, which we have very little control over on how health insurance is managed for our retirees. The bottom line is there's a $2,000 ceiling on the amount a retiree can contribute to their Medicare. And as a result, that's going to increase the amount that we have to contribute as a town. Second, new growth was very low for FY25. So our new growth, which is something that we have counted on in prior years to make a little bit of extra money for our budget beyond the 2.5% levy, was certified at $795,000. And we budget that at $800,000. So you might say to yourself, well, that's pretty good. We budgeted for $800,000. It came in at $795,000. The problem is in the last 3 years, new growth has come in at 1.6 million, 2.4 million, and 1.9 million collectively, or over the last 3 years. So even though it came in just about what we budgeted, it's not the kind of increases that we've enjoyed from one year to the next. And so, again, it's another thing that's impacted our ability to increase the budget for 26. And third, and less so, South Shore Regional Vocational Technical High School took in 5 more students than it had the year before, and we needed to account for that. So what does all of this mean as I'm working with the principals and the department heads and administration, putting together the budget for next year? It means that we're going to have to look at all of our expense lines, evaluate all the areas we might be able to save some money and look at our expenses. We know that our next large curriculum purchases are slated for history and English. We did math this year. We might have to stretch those purchases out over 2 years, over 26 and 27. We're looking at all of our vacancies, and we're looking at any savings that we can realize through retirements. I think the important thing to remember is while this is not great news, it's not panic mode. We're nowhere near a situation where we need to panic. We can maintain the staff that we have. We're not looking to cut staff. We're not looking to add staff either, but we're not looking to cut staff. We're just going to evaluate vacancies and adjust for retirements. We can still continue to run the schools. I think, the way I explained it to the principals and what I meet with the department heads next week, what I'm going to explain to them is it's a bit of belt tightening and strategic thinking to get through a tough year. The Scituate community committed $119.4 million to the new Hatherley Elementary School. We want to honor that commitment and stay focused on the education of our students. I did a back of the napkin budget for FY26 last week. Of course, the back of my napkin is 5 spreadsheets, but I did the back of the napkin budget. And, we can balance it. We can make it work. But it's just going to require us to do some belt tightening and really be strategic in all of our thinking. I asked the question at Financial Forecast, was there any opportunity for additional revenue come January? And there are a little bit extra money. We may get some extra money in Chapter 70 or unrestricted government aid. The health insurance, once finalized, might come down. But at the end of the day, we might see an extra $200,000 split between the town and the schools. So while I'll never reject an extra $150,000 or $160,000, it's not going to be, a lot of extra money. It'll certainly be helpful, but it's not going to be a lot of extra money. So we need to plan based on this 1.8% increase. So I'll be keeping the committee fully informed as we go along. But I just wanted to be clear, some of the increases that we've enjoyed in the past, last year was a 4.4% increase. Next year it's 1.8. We're not going to be seeing. So I know, Mr. Gates, you were there. If you want to add anything, feel free. But I think that's, kind of where we're at.
No, thank you very much for those comments. I think it's really helpful. I don't think we've ever really enjoyed comments this early on the budget cycle, so it's really nice. And I know the last couple of years, as you mentioned, we haven't really had any pinches relative to belt tightening, I guess. So this is obviously a different environment for us, and it's nice to hear this early on in the cycle. The only thing I would, I guess, add to is that Dr. Rabb mentioned new growth, and I think it's important for people to understand what new growth is. And I'm not an expert in it, but generally think of it as new houses that are being built that weren't taxed the prior year, but will be taxed upon in the current year, and or major renovations of homes that are being torn down and rebuilt. So I think it's an interesting concept because as a town, we want to increase our tax revenue, but we also want to keep the small town feel theoretically. So we have this difficult balance to make, and I think we're seeing it across the country that with interest rates higher, the economy maybe changing, that we just don't have that new growth that we have enjoyed in the past. I think also to some small degree they changed the definition of new growth. I think if you added a deck or redid your kitchen, I think technically that was added to our new growth number as well. For the current year or going forward, those no longer small renovations are going to be considered new growth. So it is a big impact. I think as Dr. Rabb said, we were 1.6 million last year or the year before, and then this year it's roughly half of that. So it is a significant impact on our budget, but also from the town side as well. But I appreciate your comments. I feel better hearing that from you, that it is going to be some belt tightening, but nothing dramatic as of this point.
Dr. Rabb, just a quick question. So I'm just curious if you know when the next sort of pulse point is. I feel like you once mentioned maybe January or so for sort of just a next check-in in the cycle of the budget, or?
Yes, exactly. So January is when Chapter 70 and unrestricted government aid come out on the cherry sheets. You might hear them reflected that way. It's also when they finalize our health insurance rates for FY26. So both of those things happen in January. I would anticipate Mrs. Holt reconvening the financial forecast sometime around the end of January.
Okay, thanks. Any other else questions?
Thank you, Dr. Arab. I was wondering if you could give like an example of how the new health law about Medicare and retirees in contribution, like a scenario, for example, of how that affects our budget.
Sure. So retirees, and I might read directly from Mrs. Holt's comments because she did give a little bit more detail in terms of exactly how that happens. But basically, what she said is when people are on Medicare, their Part A deductible has increased by 4.9%, and the Part B deductible has increased by 7.9%, raising the reimbursement rates for outpatient services as part of the Inflation Reduction Act. And all retiree plans have this $2,000 out-of-pocket member maximum. So all retirees who have insurance or retired as employees of the town still contributes a bit to their health insurance. And up until now, there hasn't been a cap on how much the retiree could actually contribute. But because Medicare Part A was increased by 4.9% and Part B by 7.9%, that's far in excess of what we usually see for increases. And they increased the premium and they capped the amount that the retiree could actually contribute in order to help the retirees. So both of those things happening together are making it impossible to keep the health insurance the way it was. And so that's the primary reason for the change. The impact to individuals who are retired is that there's a $2,000 cap on how much that they can contribute, but that increases the amount the town has to kick in order to maintain that insurance. I can get some more information, but that's the basics of what Mrs. Holt explained when she told us about it.
So do we know, is there like a flat amount that we're expected to cover, or is it going to fluctuate between retirees, like depending on what they get for care?
I believe it's pretty much the same per retiree, but let me do a little bit of research. I want to be able to answer that confidently.
Okay. I was just curious if, we knew how much that was going to cost us, or if that's like a moving target.
We know for next year for sure. Beyond that, I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Dr. Rab.
Thank
Carrie,
you.
sorry, Dr. Bukowski. Just want to check in with you.
I'm
Any
good.
questions? Yeah.
I'm good, thanks.
All righty. Thank you. We'll move forward with our Celebrate Student Learning. Megan Gregory and Heather Allen.
So good evening. I just wanted to provide a little bit of context for this section. So we're excited to present our celebrations of student learning. We wanted to start with our elementary curriculum coordinators, Megan Gregory and Heather Allen. They're going to share with us on the heels of our MCAS and accountability presentation and the superintendent's goals, a little bit about more information about benchmarking, how we use early literacy screening data, and how that informs our WIN groups, intervention and progress monitoring. So they put together a few slides to share that information. So without further ado, I'll project these and then they can present.
It's just doing that weird great walk thing.
Yeah.
Is it okay? You're not going to miss anything.
Yeah. No, we were just saying it
commented
happened
that
last
last
time too,
time.
so.
Those weird blocks.
Yeah. It's a new mystery feature.
Yeah. All right, so we as Brian said, we're gonna fill you in on sort of the benchmarking process at the elementary level, and then how that helps us plan out our win groups and our win process. So here are our core programs for ELA and math. Our core math program is Eureka, which we fully adopted in 2020, which is a strange time, but we did it. It was great, and we're still sticking with it. It's been great. And then our supplemental program that we're using now is ST Math, and we adopted that in 2022.
And then on the literacy side, we adopted MyView in 2022. We're in our third year of implementation as our core literature-based program for building knowledge and building critical reading skills. K-2, you supplement with foundations for our foundational skills, thinking about phonics and explicitly teaching our youngest kids how to read using an evidence-based method, along with common language and common instructional approach based on the science of reading. I did put it up here because it's just 2 grade levels, but we also use Heggerty for KN1, which is phonemic awareness, which is a critical precursor for learning to read. So we make sure we have all those pieces in place for early literacy for our students. And Foundations was adopted in 2021, and Heggerty actually was in 2020, so the same funny year.
So for our K-5 benchmarking, all of our students are assessed 3 times a year in math and literacy. We have a one-on-one interview-based assessment, both for math and ELA, and then we have a computer adaptive assessments for grades 2 to 5. So for the interview-based assessment for math, we use the Universal Screener for Number Sense, and that's for grades K to 4. This is a one-on-one interview. The students are sitting down, they don't have to write anything. It's really just a conversation. So the teacher gets a really good understanding of what the students can do, and it's pretty low pressure, and the kids aren't stressed because they just feel like they're having a conversation. A lot of kids are excited about it because they can sort of talk about it, and they feel like there's no wrong answer, which is great.
And then for on the literacy side, we have DIBBLS, which stands for Dynamic Indicators of Basic Early Literacy Skills. They're 1-minute probes, all oral, that we're either asking students to tell us the sounds that they hear in something, or presenting text and having the students read to us for 1 minute. Same kind of thing. It's low pressure, low stakes. We are dipsticking these early literacy skills that are the most predictive in learning to read. So we know if students are able to segment words, segment phonemes and words, we know if they are able to read nonsense words, that they're going to be more skilled in reading as they move up in the grade levels. So these are little 1-minute probes that really focus on the most predictive skills for reading, so that we know if kids don't have those skills, they don't have the building blocks that they need to be successful, so that we know exactly which skills to focus on in instruction.
And then our computer adaptive assessment, we use STAR Math and STAR Reading for students in grades 2 to 5. This is computer based. I mean, it's pretty.
Yeah, and this is the more global
Yeah.
view of it. Instead of having individual skills like for reading, it's can students read something and understand it. So this is the end goal. This is what we want kids to do. It's highly correlated to MCAS. We're actually using the MCAS correlations this year to make some predictions about where students will fall, so that we have kind of like an early red flag about which students we can focus on.
And they've had STAR Reading for a very long time. I'm not going to
10 years.
Okay, yeah. Last year was our first year for STAR Math. The reason behind it is because, one, we wanted continuity and ease of use for teachers, but also for students. So they're used to the platform, and we're not so much assessing their tech skills, but their math skills, because they're familiar with the platform, they can navigate it easily, and also so teachers aren't going to a bunch of different places for these benchmarks. So we did a good amount of research, we piloted, and this is what we landed on for lots of different reasons, and we were happy with the choice. It's been great so far.
Are these administered by classroom teachers, or is this through reading and math specialists that?
That's a great
That's a
question.
great segue, actually. I'm gonna go to the next. So here is our data cycle. So the first part, underneath the very top of that, it says assess. That's being blocked out. So the first step in our cycle is assess our students. So whether we're in the benchmarking cycle, it goes through all the same phases. The benchmarking cycle is just a longer cycle, longer amount of time. So the first step is going to be assess. So the math and literacy specialists work together to create an assessment schedule, and they're going to coordinate with the classroom teacher, special educators, to create a plan. And what we started 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, is having a group of teachers. So usually the classroom teacher, math specialist, literacy specialist, and special educator go into the classroom at the same time. And we have a substitute cover the class, so you're pulling out students, so everyone's being tested at once. So there's minimized disruptions for the class, so everyone's going in, and it also gives all teachers a chance to work with students and really understand their profile and what are their needs, what are their learning styles. So it's sort of all hands on deck in terms of the benchmark process.
No, I was just saying it, all in all, when you have all those teachers going into a classroom, it's really only about an hour, 3 times a year. So it's not, we're taking a lot of time out of learning to pull each kid out individually with, 1 or 2 people. The STAR assessments, the computer adaptive assessments, are administered by teachers. All the teachers last year were trained when we adopted STAR Math, and then all new teachers this year got an additional training at the beginning of the school year for how to use it, how to use the platform, and how to look at the data.
So then the next step is analyze. So we have data meetings. So the specialists will input the benchmark data into shared data sheets, and then they're going to begin looking for trends. They're going to identify students' areas of strength and areas of need, and then they have a grade level data meeting that's run by math and literacy specialists. They have these big data meetings, benchmark data meetings, 3 times a year, but they'll have smaller, more informal ones all throughout the year, led by specialists. So there, during that phase, you're going to analyze where, what are the groups of students, put kiddos into groups with similar focus areas, and that's when your groupings are going to happen during those data meetings. You're going to have really deep conversations, so it's going to bring in benchmark data, but also teachers will talk about classroom data, and you're really talking about the whole student in these meetings, and then you're going to group them into similar needs.
And then what we have for the plan part is we're identifying instructional focus areas for every student. So we're saying, this group of kids is still working on identifying their letters, and this group of kids is ready to start reading words, and this group of kids can start reading some longer text at this point. So we're identifying those instructional focus areas that are based in skills, so that we can say, during our WIN group, we're identifying what each student is working on based on the data and like profiles of students, so that we're thinking about what each of those students needs to move forward in literacy or math, which cycles up into teaching, breaking those kids into those WIN groups where the smallest groups are those kids who are the most needy and are being taken by our literacy and math specialists who have the most specialized knowledge about how to support those students and how to, create instructional plans that are really tailored to kids who are struggling. And then the kids who some kids are taken by special educators to work on IEP goals. And then we have classroom teachers taking other groups of students who might have specific instructional goals that they have to work on as well, and some kids who are working on enrichment opportunities too. So we kind of have the range of thinking about what are goals for each of these groups of kids, and then taking a look in those data meetings about what are the materials that we have to support each of these. Last year, on the literacy side, we worked a little bit on making a WIN menu, saying, okay, you have a group of kids who need help with fluency. Here are 3 different resources that you can go to for 3rd grade kids who need help with fluency. So helping streamline for teachers where to go and how to find it and what that instruction might look like.
And there's a document similar to that for math as well, tied to standards and tied to the different modules for Eureka. So teachers can go there and look and pull things for small group instruction as well as WIN groups, but they're very targeted to standards.
It's a good question on this slide. So just for frame of reference, what does time look like for this? So how much time is spent on data meetings in a 3 times a year cycle? Or, are teachers involved in that as well? So they're out of the classroom, so now we need coverage there, or are they not involved? And then with WIN groups, how often are they meeting?
Yeah, great question. So for data meetings 3 times a year, it does not impact time on learning. It's during their regular grade level meetings. So it just takes place in one of their weekly grade level meetings. Math specialists come prepared, or I always say math, I'm sorry, specialists, math and literacy specialists come prepared typically with the data ready to go. A lot of times they'll have a slide deck, they'll present the data, sort of trends that they're seeing, and ask if teachers are also seeing the same trends. They'll solicit sort of teacher input, what are you seeing in the classroom? And from that data meeting during grade level time, they create their WIN groups.
No, for it's not taking any time, and it's similar from when we're talking about like the benchmarking process as when we're talking about the progress monitoring process. When specialists have progress monitoring data to bring, we typically don't want to jump and make decisions after we have one data point. We want a couple of data points to make some decisions about going through this cycle again before the next benchmark period, saying here's the data we have, maybe this is going well, we want to keep doing this with this student, or maybe it's not going well and we have to move back and fill in some gaps, or the student's rocking it and we can move them into a different group. So we can go through this entire cycle again, not just those 3 times a year, but in between those times also when we're taking our progress monitoring data. We typically progress monitor the students who are below benchmark. So we're really paying close attention to those kids who didn't make benchmark at each benchmark period and monitoring their progress to see is what we're doing working and do we have to change it, or can we, is this, things are going well and we can keep on the course.
So I have go ahead, Marie. I'll go
I
after.
just had a quick follow-up question. I was just curious how many specialists we have for literacy and math in the district.
I'm so glad you asked. So we have 2 literacy specialists in every building and 1 math specialist in every building.
So each building has their own little team. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It would be great if there were 2 math specialists in every building, right after Tom just presented. Yeah.
And do they specialize like primary and upper grades, or do they sort of just do what's needed at each school for the literacy?
For literacy,
yeah.
When I first started, and I was a literacy specialist at Jenkins, there was a primary and a secondary, a primary and an intermediate. We've kind of found, especially starting WIN, that it's a lot more effective when you have 2 people going into a classroom. So when you're talking about supporting, first grade during WIN, typically both the literacy specialists are in during that time. They do sometimes separate for, I'll go to the K1, 2 meetings, you go to the 3, 4, 5 meetings just because of bandwidth. They can't be in every meeting all the time.
So the ratio of their meeting time versus their time as students is approximately 50-50, or so for attending all the grade level meetings weekly for each grade?
So typically, like for reading specialists, they're dividing that up. So they're attending 3 and they're not attending them every week. They're attending them every other week. Because the math specialist will go to 1 week, the reading specialist will go to the next week.
Yeah.
So it's
Every
about,
every other.
yeah, so it's 3 hours and, or a little bit more because it's, about 40 minutes. So each and 3 every other week.
How long have we had this model of specialists in each building? Has it been a really long time, or is it newer?
The number of specialists?
Just the idea of having them. That have we always had them?
I have
Predating
been here
you
for
guys.
14 years,
Okay.
and I was one of the 2 reading specialists
Okay.
when I was hired. So for
Yeah, a long time.
Very
Okay,
long
I was just curious.
So I have a question. It's related to time, but a little bit different. And so what I'm hearing when I talk to families is, first of all, they're so happy that you're doing all of this work, right? That you're collecting this data, you're analyzing it. They love to see the team, the collaboration. The question that I hear over and over again from families is the worry around time to intervention. So, for example, I met with a family a couple of weeks ago, and their child has been below benchmark for a couple of years. And so the question is, what sort of best practice around this isn't working. We really need to change gears so that this child has a chance to succeed. They just feel like it's taking so long to move through the intervention process. I'm just wondering, like, how do we sort of shorten that time so that we're really getting those kids to move off of those, not meeting expectations.
So I guess just need some clarification.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the time that students are in an intervention, or
Yeah, so for example, if you look at MCAS data or you look at the dibbles with a family, they can see that their child isn't making a lot of movement. There's not a lot of progress, right? And so the meetings are, we know this person needs this attention, we're trying this, and it's not working as well. We're going to keep trying this and doing this thing. And so I'm just wondering, like, what do you do in that situation? Because it feels like we have the data that's telling us the child's not progressing. And so does this mean they need an IEP? Does this, like, I'm just wondering, like, what are sort of the tools in your toolkit and best practices around how do we help this child progress? I think that's what I'm asking, if that makes sense.
Yep. So one tool in the toolkit would be, going through a cycle of intervention, and it's, we're using evidence-based practices, and the student isn't making progress, and that's a point when a student might be referred to the student support team, and that team takes a look and thinks about if there needs to be a referral to special education. It also might be thinking about changing the intervention. And so when we're thinking about this cycle and looking at those kids who aren't making progress, thinking about, what are we doing, and the tools that we kind of have can we increase the frequency of the intervention with this student? Can we decrease the group size with this student? Or can we change the approach that we're using with this student? So those are the kind of the 3 parts that we take a look at when we're talking about going through this data cycle and looking at data that maybe isn't moving.
Yeah. Is there any cross collaboration or any benefit to cross collaboration across the elementary school? Like, do they do that, or are they really in their own school?
Are you talking about the specialists?
Yes, sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
math specialists meet once a month, and literacy specialists meet once a month as well.
Okay.
And this
Thank
is a big focus of that. Of,
Okay.
What's happening in and when in our benchmarking process.
Okay. Thanks.
And then so our next steps for 2025 and beyond.
So we started on here. We put that, I think Ryan Beatty has probably talked to you a little bit about the S3 Academy, the Student Support Academy that they piloted starting last year at Gates. Jenkins is piloting this year. Heather and I are a part of those meetings so that we can think about how the whole child approach of S3 can be merged into what we do with our benchmarking process, because we don't want to make things additive for teachers or for students or for a school, but how can we think about how we can blend these two together. We're very, very new at this. I think we've gone to 2 meetings so far, so we don't have a ton of information right yet. We're still asking a lot of questions and trying to figure out what that might look like.
The next step also, grade level collaboration structures. So a lot of feedback we've received from teachers was that during COVID, we had once a week, all cross grade or cross district, or same grade, cross district would meet. And they would have a lot of time to just chat. What's working well for you? What are you doing for the module? Or how is Eureka working with this module? So having that time to collaborate and really talk about best practices. So we are doing our best to bring it back within the schedule that we have. So tomorrow, for grades 2 to 5 in the ECC during our PD day, that's a lot of bulk of the work that's going to happen tomorrow. So grades are going to have a full day to work together and guide that work. And we're hoping moving forward we can continue that. Also, we looked at the specialist schedules, math and literacy specialists, and thinking about can they attend these grade level meetings, because they have this wealth of knowledge, and making sure they're bringing it to classroom teachers and sharing what they're learning about students in these WIN groups, and making sure that they have that time to collaborate. So making sure that specialists are able to attend those twice a month is typically what most schools, sometimes once a month, just to make sure that there's that communication between the classroom teachers and specialists.
The next thing we're thinking about is the parent reports for Dibbles and Star and Aspen. Currently, after a benchmark period, an email goes out. You can check your students' benchmark achievement in Aspen. It tells you if the students are below or approaching or at or above. I talked to Steve DeCross this morning, and he is amazing. And we are going to try and upload the actual parent reports for the January benchmark. He kind of gave it a go with the MCAS parent reports, and it worked. So that was our guinea pig. And so we'll be able to upload those to the portal so that parents can see the actual report and the breakdown of each of those subtests for Dibbles and for Star.
This is not a question for the folks presenting. Bill, this is a question for you. Is there any way to make it so that Aspen looks nicer on our phones? Because otherwise it's like you can't zoom in, you can't see it, but you have to go to your computer. So that's just something for your very long to-do list.
Noted, thank you.
Yeah. She's right.
It's the first time I've heard that, so thank you.
It's just Aspen, I think.
Seems like we always have a long list for Aspen.
Yeah.
It's not
I just gave up and started opening it on my laptop. It's way easier.
Same here.
But we can make it known, because I'm sure we're not the only school district dealing with that, so.
Yeah.
No, I do the same, but my high schooler does know how to do it on her phone somehow.
You can put it on desktop view, but it's like very
I think, well, I don't think my eyes can see that.
too small, yeah. Will those reports be available no matter where a child falls
Yes.
on the, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So I'm excited about that.
Is that separate from, when you were saying about the grade level collaboration structures and all that, is that separate from math and literacy councils?
Yeah.
So this data meetings council and grade level collaboration kind of horizontally?
Those are 3 separate.
Oh, okay.
Two-
What is literacy and math council?
It's the literacy specialist, and Megan is literacy council, and sometimes principals pop in when they have time, and math council is math specialist and myself.
Is there an instructional leadership team also at the elementary level that teachers participate in? Does everyone participate in that, or just teachers who volunteer or sign up? Or
Yeah, it's a stipended position at each elementary school.
I have a question about the assessments, and You said they take about like a minute, the
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 dibbles,
dibbles.
a minute for each of the probes, yes.
And how many probes?
It depends on what grade level you're in. It's about 4,
Okay.
K to 4. Sometimes if you're testing a kindergarten student and they don't can't identify letters, we're not going to go on to the next one and ask them to start reading words because they don't have the letters, and vice versa. When you're in the upper grades, if kids are reading really fluently, we're not going to go back and ask them to start reading individual words. So it depends sometimes on how there's a gating measure on how they do on the first assessment. If we might not go forward or back with those kids, but it's about a total of 4 to 5 minutes.
Okay. Do you feel that that's enough time to get a good picture of where the students are at?
It's a great screening. It's a great screener. And so if kids do well on that screener, we're pretty confident that they're doing well, and we'll get information from the teacher to verify that. If kids don't do well on that screener, it's a flag for us to do some more digging. So we don't end it right there. We'll say, okay, the student really had difficulty with phoneme segmentation. Maybe we'll do a phonological awareness test to learn a little bit more about what they need to work on. Is it they don't have beginning sounds yet? Is it they don't have any sound? Like we'll do some digging for those kids that we're focusing on in intervention.
And when you do the STAR math and reading tests, 2 to 5, do you look back at the kindergarten, like the K to 4, or the assessments they take when they're younger and say, oh, this child isn't where I thought they should be, or, maybe they're better than you thought. But I'm guessing you do that.
So we have data sheets, homegrown, which leads us to our next thing.
one.
Data sheets that combine from year to year, so you can look at student progress. So we usually have their MCAS score. We'll have benchmark assessments from the prior year, their current year benchmark. So it's a data sheet that really houses all of their data points. We can look at sort of a big picture, longitudinal picture of the progress.
This is making me think of when you have your kids at the doctor and they're like on that projector.
Yes,
So
exactly.
it's just like that.
Yes.
Yes, when you actually pull up a Dibbles report, that's what it looks like, and it goes from kindergarten all the way. Yes.
Thank you.
But that is our next bullet on here is we're looking into a data platform that can house all of this data instead of us entering individual data points into a Google spreadsheet. That
Sounds fun.
yeah, it's just there. You can make a mistake if you type one number wrong, and we've had some. We can catch it, but we'll say, oh, how did this kindergartner read 300 words a minute? I don't think that was it was 30.
Yeah.
So we're looking into something that can house all that data and give us more usable reports. Right now, Dibbles and STAR give us reports that can show longitudinal, that can organize the data in more sensible ways. And so we're looking for ways to do that across Dibbles and STAR and Universal Screener instead of having to go to 3 different places to pull the data from. Or right now, we're putting all that data together in a homegrown spreadsheet.
And then just ideal world, additional personnel for supporting WIN. Because if you think of a true WIN model, you want every student in a small group. If you only have a classroom teacher and a literacy or math specialist, so if a specialist is taking a small group, the classroom teacher is left to manage either a big group or manage 3 different WIN groups at once. So thinking about what can we do to support all of those WIN groups, whether it's borrowing pairs or just moving personnel around during WIN time, so getting creative about making it really all hands on deck for supporting WIN.
And for that, we've also talked about the need for professional development for other people who are supporting students during that time, and how can we support all the educators who are helping kids during WIN.
I love all your next steps. I think these are all exactly right, and I'm excited about the parent reports. I think that'll be really helpful for a lot of families. I was curious about whether you guys feel like the benchmark data that we're collecting throughout the year is reflected in our MCAS scores? Do you feel like when you see MCAS, you're like, oh yeah, this is what we thought, or are you surprised?
I think for the most part, I think once in a while, of course, you're gonna have a kiddo who exceeds your expectations or sort of didn't live up to them. But those are a few outliers. I think for the most part, it's a very good indicator. Would you agree?
Thank you. And I had another
Good.
quick
I have a
question.
follow-up to your
Oh, yeah, go
question
ahead.
with that.
Yeah.
So with that, given that we see sort of a large group of sort of partially meeting or not quite or approaching, and per what Carrie shared about, kids sort of not quite getting into that steady, stable, confident zone. What do you need? You guys have the sort of bird's eye view to know what goes on at the 4 schools. Are there elements in one that you feel like would be successful at another? So what do we need to get kids to get out of that sort of underlying zone that we're just not sort of seeing that growth?
I mean, I think one of the big parts of that is that grade level collaboration across schools, which we haven't had in a couple of years. So we're really excited for tomorrow to be able to have that, because I think when you're one teacher or one team of 2 or 3 teachers working in isolation, you can only get so much done. But when you have 12 teachers across a grade level, there's just a larger knowledge bank to draw from, and there's more experience and more ideas, and I made this and I'm going to make this, and so everybody's not reinventing the wheel from the beginning each time. I think that having that opportunity to collaborate with colleagues and bounce ideas off of each other is really, really critical. So we're very excited to have that tomorrow.
I think in addition to that, one of the things for 5th grade specifically is departmentalizing. We've seen how well Jenkins did with their model, and their data reflects that. Like if you're honing in on one content area and you're digging in really well, like it reflects sort of that work. So making sure that all 4 elementary schools are doing that, I think we're gonna see that increase for 5th grade. I'm thinking specifically for the STE MCAS, I think we're gonna see the benefit of it.
For the cross-grade collaboration, are you able to sort of structure that so that you can identify like, hey, these people are really good at this thing. Can you, be prepared to share this? Are you able to do you feel like you're able to do that?
So this is the first one in a long time.
Okay.
So the goal for tomorrow is really thinking about tier 1 instruction. We feel like we've sort of nailed down ELA and math, but we want to make sure that science and social studies are integrated into those, because what we're finding is that the day is really short and we're not able to integrate science and social studies like we'd like. So this is their opportunity to check in, like how is science being brought into ELA, or how is that writing being brought into social studies? So the focus for them for tomorrow, because we know that these are going to lead to other conversations, which is great, but the focus is going to be how are we integrating science and social studies into ELA and math to not have everything so siloed. So that's the goal for tomorrow. I think we will get there, and that's the goal for sure. But with it being the first time in such a long time, it just makes sense.
Thank you. I've been thinking how to ask this question. I'm not quite sure the most appropriate way, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Like all of us, have our day jobs and we have our own stressors of like, oh, I'm like worried about this or whatever. Like what one thing are you guys worried about this? Like what keeps you up at night?
Science.
Right there.
All right.
I think the day is so short in the elementary level, and specifically catered to they need to learn how to read. So when you're really heavily focused on that, what is getting pushed? Science.
And is science taught in the 1 and 2 as well?
Yeah,
It is.
it starts in K.
Okay.
And the teachers are incredible and they're really doing the best they can, but we want to make sure, that's why the goal for tomorrow is how are we integrating it, because we need to teach them. We need to teach the kiddos how to read and write. But I really want them to have science, because as we know, the STE MCAS, it's not just about MCAS. We want to create lifelong learners. And we want kids that are excited about science and the world around them. But we need them to hold on to it. So just reading a story is not going to get them. So getting them hands-on activities for science, that's what keeps me up at night. How can we have them? How can we build time into our schedule? I don't have the answer because we need them reading. Especially, I'm really thinking about the littles, but that's me.
But I'm like, as the literacy side of this, I'm in complete agreement because, you know, one side of when we think about reading rope is teaching kids phonics and how to decode words. The other side is the comprehension side, and kids need to have world knowledge to be able to understand what they read. And if kids don't have world knowledge, if kids don't have science and social studies, they're not going to have great comprehension because you have to have background knowledge to be able to comprehend something. You can't just be able to rattle off words. So that's a focus for me too, is that we know that proficient readers have a lot of background knowledge, and that putting science social studies on the back burner in favor of focusing more on ELA backfires because they're not going to have anything to draw on when they're reading something.
Thank you. No, it's interesting you said. I didn't know what to expect, but I think that that's helpful. And I would say, anecdotally from my child's experience, that you kind of hit on exactly what is caught up to them now. They're great readers phonetically, but the comprehension piece is a challenge because they missed what exactly you just mentioned. Background knowledge.
Yeah, and that is, that was one of the big drivers of purchasing MyView, was that we want to make sure that, MyView is taught in units that are knowledge-based. And so there's 6 weeks focused on one piece of knowledge. And so it's not just, reading a book here, a book there, a book here, and just kind of getting a smattering of things, but saying we really want kids to focus for an entire unit on one topic and really get to know the vocabulary in that topic, ask good questions about that topic, and have a deep knowledge and not just a surface knowledge of things.
Should it be something like worms, like you would teach an early elementary student something about worms, and then that would be kind of your science topic that provides some background knowledge, and it will also allow you to work on math and ELA? Is that what you're talking about?
That's the goal, and that's what we're hoping to work on tomorrow, is talking about, in 3rd grade, one of the units is, about animals, and in science, they work on the life cycle, and how can we put those together so that we can work smarter and not harder.
Great, thank you.
Is this, oh, go ahead. Good.
I was just curious about writing. So does MyView include writing instruction? It does. And how is writing assessed outside of MCAS or kind of teacher-created assessments? Is there any type of benchmarking for writing?
So we have a common rubrics that we have been using, but we don't have a formal, like a formalized benchmark writing. We actually have had it, and when Ryan was the department chair, and we have not, that's definitely an area of growth for us, of thinking about the benchmark rating.
That's what keeps me up at night, actually. It's just like, because I know it's like part of the whole thing, but it also is one of those things that's kind of easy to leave behind. And it was mentioned, during the MCAS presentation as an area of weakness. And it is, honestly. And so I just, I know we have the new MyView, and that took time to get people up and running on, but, the writing piece is something feels really important.
It is. It's critical, and it's definitely, now that people are feeling more comfortable with using MyView as a tool, like digging into, what does the instruction look like, and what do those assessments look like throughout the units.
My question was just like, how do the teachers feel about it? Seems like a lot to. So 5th grade would be different because of the departmentalization, so that would look a little different with the science piece than the younger grades would. So is this a big shift for them to have to sort of now integrate science into those other subject areas, or?
I don't think it's a big shift. I think it will be helpful to them because they're always been teaching all of the content areas anyway, and it's just getting creative with their time. So I don't think that anyone is like losing sleep over it. I think they're just excited to sort of have the conversation. What are you doing, and like how are you bringing this in, so that they get creative with their time to make sure that they can get everything in.
So we recognize that there are not enough hours in the day
They're
for
not.
teachers for everything that they're doing right now.
Yeah. Yes. Anyone? Dr. McCoskey, anything to add before? Okay. Thank you guys so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Have it. All right. School committee goals, Dr. McCoskey and Ms. Benwick. I will present this for you.
You want me to share screen, Maria, or
You want to
somebody have them?
Nicole does
I
have
do.
them.
I can.
Okay, great.
Give me 1 second.
While Nicole's getting that, I can just kind of remind everyone of the process. So we wanted to, we looked at the district's template for some of the goals that have been happening at the district level because we feel like it's important that our goals are in the same vein. We don't want to come out of left field with something that the district isn't doing because that's going to make it very hard for us to meet our goals. And also we agree that the things that the district has identified are also really important for us. And so that's kind of was our starting point. And so
The retreat too, Maria. It might be worth
Yep.
noting that we did a brainstorming session at our retreat. So we've
Yeah.
been, even though we're only presenting the first week in November, we've been thinking about these and talking
Yes.
about them for a while, and then waiting for Bill to present his. So as you said, we could align them. So
Yes, that is true. And we had such a large brainstorm at the retreat that we've ended up with 4. But we also realized that we don't need to think of these necessarily as annual in the same way that, Bill has the freedom to sort of think a little bit bigger than that, because it's very unlikely that we're going to feel like, oh yes, slam dunk, we did that and we're done in a year. So we also were giving ourselves some freedom to sort of think of these as not necessarily being like, we have to do them all at once. So maybe we can just kind of rotate. I can start with this first one, which is about data. So one of the things that we talked about last time we were talking about this was just trying to think about how we can ask the most useful questions and draw the best conclusions possible from when we have data shared with us. And there's a lot to learn about education, K-12 data. We just heard a lot of examples tonight. There's MCAS, there's AP scores. We are constantly hearing from a lot of different data sources. And so one of the things we thought about was just strengthening our ability to do that, to look at the data, interpret it at the right level, and ask the right kind of questions. It's not like too tiny, but also not missing the mark completely. And so we thought that one way we could think about this was to initiate a data subcommittee of us, and that group would be able to kind of further articulate and define its charge, meaning like, we think this is a good idea, but we didn't feel comfortable in saying, this is exactly what the data committee would do. We think that we should let a couple of people explore that and come up with, what feels right. And so our timeline for that would be initiating that by January, articulating its charge by March. And then by June, we were hoping that data subcommittee would be able to provide a minimum of 2, either like little trainings or resources to the whole group that would support our own data literacy. So, Carrie, do you want to add anything?
no, I just appreciated that you reminded everybody that this is something that we think is important and we don't have the final answer. And so this year is really figuring those pieces out, because I think the other piece that's inherent in the benchmarks or even in the description is the collaboration. So what does it look like for our data subcommittee to collaborate with the district and be supportive, and also elevate our own knowledge to ask better questions? So all of those things need to be figured out. So
Just a question, sort of. In some research that I've done over the years, just looking at what other, or even at some of these conferences or something, it's really interesting. And even Janice and I were just sharing about another district and their different process. It's interesting how other towns and cities have completely different approaches to everything. I'm wondering if anyone else has a data subcommittee, if they do, and it's called something else even, or if it's like an element of some other component, or who knows that's happening out there. Do we know that yet, or
No, we can ask it. Ask.
like some have communication subcommittees, and it's like when you see on different school websites under that school committee tab or something, like it's interesting to know how they break down their groups and subcommittees.
Yeah, the reason we suggested that approach of a subcommittee was just that it feels like you never have enough time. And in these settings where it's like all 5 of us, it's just hard really to get much done. Like we really need to like be able to sit down and sit with a computer and be like, okay, this is what we need. And so I don't know another structure that would allow us to do that. That's, so I don't know that it has to necessarily be this, but that felt like the right thing because it matched up what we felt like needed to happen, which is just like rolling up our sleeves and spending some time working on this. But we can ask it now.
Yeah, just curious.
There's others.
Yeah.
There might be.
We can be at the inaugural.
You can present on it in future years.
Well, and I think the other thing that, Maria made the point of sort of, is this question small or are we missing the mark, right? I think the other thing we want to remember is we all have students in the district. And so we have a parent hat and a school committee hat. And so what can we do to even offer to folks who present? Like, these are the questions that come up for us as parents. Maybe you address these in the presentation right away, so then we don't have to have that conversation. We get to the next level of questions, which is also important, right? So I think it can be helpful to our presenters to sort of know what's on the minds of, not just our school committee identity, but also as families in the district. So
yeah, back to the summer retreat, I think, helping to give guidance to people who come to present was definitely one of our, what we were thinking about when we thought of this, because we don't want to waste anyone's time. Absolutely. We want people to come in feeling confident about what they're presenting and that they're going to give us what we need to know, and that we then can sort of receive that information and be like, oh yes, this is what we needed to know. Thank you. Now we know it. And so I think that's also one of the factors that we were thinking about.
Makes sense. Anyone else? All right. Cool too.
You want to take this one, Carrie?
Sure. So we thought it was really important, and we collaborated with Bill, of course, on this one. As you know, we've had the equity audit. Our group in the district has combed over that equity audit and identified, items, goals for that group. And so we thought, as a committee, we wanted to be supportive of that work and also expand it for ourselves. So, you can read the goal. But just to, progress in these DEI initiatives. And we really want to be able to give a good sense to the community writ large of how we're using resources, time, and attention. And I think what's interesting is that this goal is actually very related to the data goal, which is like, what do outcomes around DEI look like, right? Like all this amazing work that Jamil and the lit teams and the students and the teachers are doing. How do we show success? We require the principals, we require our math teachers and science teachers to show outcomes. So what does it look like to think about outcomes for DEI to help that progress? So, we gave some benchmarks, develop a system to track that progress, as outlined in the equity audit, gathering more information about who's being served, right? Like who's really benefiting, who's loving this, who has ideas about how we can expand this. Adopt the district developed equity tool. So what can we as a school committee do to support that work? And hopefully by January, have some clarity. I'm going to be meeting with Jamil in November, just to figure out sort of, again, how do we best support Jamil, his team, and the work? Because I think that's something that at least I don't have clarity on. So I'm looking forward to learning more. So Maria, anything to add there?
No, I don't think so.
Well, I think it's good. I think it, from our level, sort of aims to definitely sort of clarify things. And I think that's always going to be good to sort of support the work. And it's good.
Okay. We can go on to number 3. So this was something we also have been talking about a lot, which is just kind of this concept of having pride in our schools and lacking a local newspaper and other channels aside from social media. It can feel hard to get the word out about all the great things that are happening in our schools, in our district. And I think we feel like we are lucky to have a front row seat to knowing all of the awesome stuff that's going on. But how can we think about how to share that more broadly with the community? And so we thought that we could think about this on a monthly basis. So in most months, we will have had 2 meetings. We could think about this as something that maybe rotates through the 5 of us, or again, maybe it's like 2 people per month or something. And we come up with a couple of, points of pride, things that we learned about that we think the community should be more aware of. Like I think even about, when the Model UN team came and presented, the kids were obviously extremely persuasive, very eloquent. And it was really neat to learn about the scenarios that they're working on in those conferences. Like that's very sophisticated, and I think that's so cool. And I think the whole community should be like, wow, we have this awesome thing,
Yeah.
And so that's just one example, but there are many. And so we thought that one of the things we could do is identify at least 2 mechanisms for sharing these. So we have to first, commit to identifying them, but then we have to think, how will we get these out into the world? So we thought, we used to do the school committee updates. Maybe we somehow change that into something that is more focused on this. There's obviously social media. There are the town updates. I know the video version of that is very popular with some people in town. They really watch that. And so that could be a way if we take turns and, this month it's so-and-so's turn to go and share. That could be something that we want to do. Or maybe even there's a chunk of time within our existing meetings. I mean, that might not reach the right audience.
Some people watch the recordings.
Some people
I'm holding
do.
on to that.
Yeah.
Maybe some people watch.
But beyond who's logged into the app, beyond who's logging into YouTube to watch, like how do we sort of think more broadly was I think where we were going with this. So we thought we could treat this maybe as a pilot. If we aim to start doing it in January, we can reassess in June and think like, is this working? Was it a ton of work that we don't have time for? Maybe, but we thought it was at least worth giving that a shot. So again, this was something that came out of our retreat in the summer.
Do you think we would have it as a sort of recurring agenda item even, just to sort of, we sort of used to informally, like, when the student updates were happening, I was thinking about credit for life and participating in that. I think this is good for accountability because like that was a great experience and I love that event. It's so positive. It's so awesome for the kids. It's just great all around, but without being pushed to sort of formally, maybe even put together a few words. I don't think I would necessarily, I could share out impromptu, but it feels more appropriate and giving the respect to that, the hard work of, everyone, Greg and
I
Marie.
don't think we have to overthink it. Like, I think, in each month, if we can say, come up with 2 or 3, small examples, and actually commit to putting something together, a little mini write-up. Because I just think, I don't know, I know. Yeah.
No newspaper is a hard.
It's hard. But I think we have a lot to be proud of.
I do too. I love that. I think it's great.
Maybe
talk to Ms. Hall about because she has the situation.
Oh yeah, situation.
Maybe they'll give us a corner.
Yeah, I think I just want to find ways also to reach people who are not necessarily in the schools. Parents who are newer, who have kids that are little and will be here, or community members who are older and their kids went through the system a number of years ago. I think those feel like really important audiences that are least likely to know kind of like what's going on.
Agreed. I like this. Do you think we need a subcommittee almost in? I'm not trying to over subcommittee us.
I know, but how do you get
shaking your head at
anything
me
done
no.
without a subcommittee? Is that I don't understand.
Subcommittee for points of pride?
Yeah.
I mean.
Do we just make a schedule and people sign up?
Yeah, I don't think we want to I'll do what the group wants. That feels excessive to me.
But we do need someone to take the first step of organizing this. And I don't know how we would get on that video message. So
that's easy.
That's Seth.
Peter, maybe you can.
No, wait, are you talking the video of the weekly update?
Town,
Yeah, so, well, there's a little bit of history that we used to be on that.
Okay, let's bring it back.
Well, we have to
So-
ask Seth, right? I mean, he's
No, you don't have to ask Seth, you have to ask,
Jim
Jim.
Boudreau.
or the select board, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I even think in a pilot year, if we instantiated this into our agenda and then did something on, I'm just saying, like, I think we could think about low hanging fruit to sort of get it to be routinized and then sort of start building it out, right? Like, what's the point of pride and what makes it a point of pride? Like, those are the two questions I thought of, right? So, like, just making it, I just think not having to work too hard is going to make it easier for us to do it.
Yep.
I agree. I do think there's some bigger questions in here about like social media and the ethics piece and, you know, there's opinions from mask and all that, like, should we or shouldn't we be utilizing that, you know, and it's totally.
Unfortunately, that's the easiest way to reach people.
I know. So
That
yes,
aren't,
I like the low hanging fruit, easy for us to do that.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's something that comes from that at some point, but.
So maybe we start by just inserting it into the agenda and then we can kind of go from there.
Yeah.
We'll have to figure it out. Okay.
I mean, we could also ask Jim. I love the idea of doing the video. Maybe we do. I think he does it every week with the select board. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I do it weekly.
Yeah. So we could ask for
Monthly.
time once a month, right? So we
Yeah.
can accumulate it and do it. I'm just saying, like, if that's
I think that would be,
Yeah.
to me, that's a great, like.
I think that would
first
be work. I
step.
think that would work.
and it does connect with people who may not necessarily. It's a different group, so I
Yeah.
think it would be important.
Absolutely. I think they get good viewership on that too.
Yeah.
Pretty decent, I think.
Fantastic. All right, goal 4.
Yeah, so goal 4 is, it has to be, right, the new Cushing Hatherley School. We're gonna
Yes.
continue. It really has to be. The piece that, when Maria and I met, the piece that really kept coming up is communication, and I think this aligns really nicely with what you've been saying for a long time now, right? So it's not just communicating, pushing out information, it's also including the voices that show up at the meetings, it's thinking about the voices that are not showing up at the meetings, and like, how do we represent all the constituents? And so thinking, and I know, Bill, you've already talked about this, like thinking about, you know, having a community forum to gather ideas and inputs as we continue in this process. And again, like, what are ways that we can, you know, talk about enrollment, you know, get that out there, being really transparent, not just developing it, but also the timeline. Like, what does it look like to start making those decisions? Because we know that families are already asking. So even if we said, this is when this process is going to start, that gives families some clarity. So I think this goal, yes, it's MSBA, but it's really specific around community, parent, family engagement and communication, and bringing voices to the table to be a part of this whole process. So it's very specific in terms of where it sits with MSBA. So, and I think that's it. And I think, Nicole, don't we just present them tonight? Everybody reads them and then we vote on them the next time we meet, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep, we can digest a little bit and feedback or anything, and perfect. Appreciate you both taking this on, and will comment that these are definitely the most comprehensive I've seen, so well done. Absolutely.
comprehensive
Fantastic.
but concise.
Well,
Love it.
we all know who that is, right? We know who that influence is.
Maria, we appreciate your
Let's-
attention to
Thanks,
detail, and your thoroughness.
I have ideas, but Maria brings it home. So, like,
Personal Grammarly.
I just have one, I guess, clarifying question on goal number 1.
Oh, sorry, did you want?
What?
Did you want me to put it up again, or you don't need it?
Oh, no, I don't need it up. Just on goal number 1, is the goal really for us to be more knowledgeable about what kinds of questions to ask? Is that what the goal is?
I think the goal is for us to be more knowledgeable so that we can best interpret. So I think it's a couple of things. Like I said, we want to provide the right guidance to people who are coming to present to us. And so that is like us knowing what to ask for,
Yep.
you know? And I think when people are presenting, also having just a better understanding so that we can ask the right grain size of questions, not
Okay.
too tiny.
and I think the offshoot of that is that we are going to kindly and critically push the district to analyze the data in ways that we can have deeper and expansive conversations, not just be at sort of right. So like the better our questions are, the better and more useful the information that comes in front of us will be. And Maria and I just felt like this has to be a collaborative process, right? They don't need to be guessing what we're gonna have questions about. Like, why don't we just why don't we share what our initial questions are, and then they can start from there instead of starting 2 or 3 steps back.
Right. And we just get so much data shared with us. It's like the MCAS presentation alone is like so complicated. And if we are coming into that better, and especially because we won't always be here, but we can create resources that can be passed forward. I just think us having this better understanding will only help us and help them.
Right. I mean, we don't want, and I know we've said this before, like, we don't want presenters to have, to the extent that we can minimize anxiety for people who have to come present anything by having clarity on what we're looking for is going to be us supporting teachers, students, that's the umbrella. So I agree.
Is that the answer your question, Peter?
Yeah, I just have to, I agree with I agree with having data as a goal. I like it, but I just have to process a little bit more about how that is written. That's all, yeah.
If you have suggestions.
Yeah.
That was my next question. How would you like us to provide feedback? Just email?
Are we allowed to use
do you want
comments,
one?
or does it have to all come separately?
Maybe just email one of you directly. Like Peter, if you need a clarity on data, email.
Sounds good.
Okay. We'll have to do the chain. All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. We have Superintendent Burkhead's goals that were presented at our last meeting. Any questions or additional input, comments, feedback on Superintendent Burkhead's goals? No. Okay. We'll take a motion then to adopt Superintendent Burkhead's goals.
I make a motion that the school committee vote to adopt Superintendent Burkhead's FY25 and FY26 superintendent goals as presented.
Second.
Second by Ms. Fenwick. Roll call vote. Lindblom?
Yes.
Brandolini, yes. Gates?
Yes.
Fenwick?
Yes.
Barkowski?
Yes.
Fantastic. We also have some minutes to approve from October 21st. Any questions?
I make a motion that the school committee vote to approve the October 21st, 2024 minutes.
A second.
Okay. Lindblom?
Yes.
Brandolini, yes. Gates?
I'm abstaining.
Abstaining? Fenwick?
Yes.
Barkowski?
Yes.
All right. No warrants, no correspondences. Any other business? Superintendent Burkhead.
No, just, well, you got, I know that we'll have some attendees
What did I
at the
get?
mass,
What did I
at
get?
the, at the mass annual.
Peter's going first for the share out. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that, and then maybe some of the, we'll be able to provide, or for those of you or us that attend, may be able to provide some feedback on our goals and see if they're, are realistic. I mean, maybe there'll be a workshop on goals. I don't really know.
That'll be on Wednesday.
We're gonna be meeting it next year.
Yeah. I think you will. I mean, again, like
Yeah.
Nicole said, our goals really have never really been this clear and defined. So this is great. But no, I just wanted to mention that for those that are going. I mean, it's a big commitment to take a day or 2 or 3 off of work. And I know I always encourage all of us to go, and it's just difficult to sometimes make it happen. I think that we can, if not learn anything, at least make ourselves more well represented in the state.
Do you want us to put like almost on our next agenda, maybe just like a recap / share out of what we,
Highlights, yeah.
since Bill has all the mass portion, does mass have their own special
It's a combined.
section?
Yeah, it's
Or it's all
combined.
totally combined? Okay,
It's a little for everybody.
all right.
Good.
maybe we can all kind of.
Nicole, does everyone know that we're presenting at the national conference in April? Have you shared?
No,
Yeah, I didn't know.
I know. Do you want to tell them?
I feel like I kind of just did. So.
Yes.
Yeah, we had a presentation accepted, so we'll be going April 4th. Yeah.
What is the topic?
We're doing it on how the district has engaged in parent engagement and communication.
Great. Yep. Should be good. All right.
Bill has something.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to thank the committee for the goals. I do agree that some of the strongest and clearest that we've had. So, and they do align with my goals, the district goals. And, you know, I liked what I heard tonight about them aligning, first of all, to strengthen district goals, but also the term, you know, support, but also clarity. I think that's really awesome, you know, to get expectations as, you know, school committee members. But I also think this board's unique in the fact that I don't think all boards have full representation where all committee members have children in schools. In fact, you know, I don't know many that do. So that's a really great opportunity to seize that. We get that perspective, so I appreciate that. And I do want to also congratulate the school committee for the third consecutive year presenting at national convention. They're very, very competitive to get, you know, chance to present. To do it 3 years in a row, it shows that, yeah, Nicole's been doing a great job, and now Dr. Mikowski coming on to even strengthen that. I think it's a nice legacy to go for 10 in a row. So we'll push you back. And I did want to give a little coming attractions because it was mentioned tonight. The first superintendent Thursday Thoughts will be November 21st. I wanted to wait to get the goals clarified and approved, both of ours, so I can really wanted to kind of be a cornerstone of kicking that off and sharing with the greater community that. And there's a few other surprises we'll have in there, so that'll be a monthly thing. So that'll be 21st. And then good timing tonight was brought up about the first staff and parent meetings regarding the new school project. So December 11th, we'll be meeting with the staff. Thanks for the feedback for the committee to involve them. So they'll go first because it's important to get our staff, and not just our teachers, our entire staff's feedback on the enrollment process, but the vision for the new building. Because as we talked about in the process, even though it's the new building, any philosophical and educational experiences, we want to replicate those in the other buildings as well. You know, minus any new equipment or things like that, but we can certainly do that. So those conversations are going to be open to the entire staff. We get good feedback for that. We'll kind of talk about what we're anticipating sharing with the community on that agenda and get some feedback. So we'll be well informed to go into the next week, and that's purposely on the December 18th at 4 p.m. And I'll get this out. We'll be having the community opportunity, and that might be an opportunity as part of the school committee goals to have you all come there as partners to be part of that. We can talk about a shared agenda and what we want to accomplish at that meeting. But there'll be multiple events I foresee of those. So, you know, if you're not ready then, but there'll be other opportunities to align and get that communication. I agree. I think Ms. Fenwick said it, that I look at these as more than just a new school, but a great avenue to open communications about teaching and learning in general. And just having those conversations about what's a great opportunity to open a brand new building physically, but what's great education look like? We have a chance to re-envision that in this new building and then transfer it over or take other ideas that we're already using, of course, and bring that in. So that'll be exciting. It'll be nice to just sit down, because I think the seaside chats were some of my favorite times, like sitting with the community and, you know, just getting to listen and learn. I get yelled at a little bit sometimes. Feel my skin nice and thick, but I don't anticipate that being the case on these meetings. It's a little different focus. So I hope there's excitement and energy and people feel included and having a voice about what this new school and our new vision of that looks like. So those are upcoming in December. And by December break, we'll have met with or given the opportunity for our entire community, including our staff, to sit down. I think we'll have a wealth of information after that opportunity, and then we'll go from there for having more follow-up meetings and to talk more about our enrollment plan specifically, but also include other opportunities. So that first meeting will be a listening, will be an informational, just so we give you all an idea of what we're thinking. Because last time we've been out in the community was more like getting the yes vote and showing what we had. Now we have a lot of really good information or pictures of what the new building looks like, teaching learning spaces. We've got teacher input now. So to share that back with the community, give them more information, update them, timeline, and then the rest will be kind of a listening piece on what they would like to see in the enrollment plan, what's their goals, and it'll be very interesting to see what the teachers' thoughts are. And the example I keep giving is, for those that are listening, redistricting is the old word. We're using the new word as enrollment because it will impact all of our enrollment and where kids go to school and all that kind of stuff. We really have an impact on all kids and families, so it's important we look at it like that through that lens. But the example is, okay, and again, it's a hypothetical at this point. If we were able to get all kids and their siblings that are in the current two schools into the new building, could we do it with our busing schedule? Would it be realistic and practical? And then if we were to do that, what would class size then look like? And are people willing, are families in, then we have to think about the teachers too, to bounce it up, because I think that's been a staple of our, something we're very proud of, I think as a whole here, and I know the families are, keeping that average at 20 or under. That's the average now, keep in mind. So if we were to get everybody in there at the cost of increasing class sizes, would be comfortable with. So those are tough conversations that we're going to have, but it helps getting that feedback and things like that. So when we finally make the final plan, everyone can say, I felt listened to, I felt heard, and we have good information to make strong decisions based on not only the geographical data, the enrollment data, but also the human voice and what people are feeling emotionally as a community. So looking forward to those.
The public forums, is that open to the general public?
Yes.
Okay, not just restricted to like Haverly, Cushing?
Correct.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Are you having those here at the library or?
We're going to start at Hadley, just to, nothing else, just because that's going to be the location. So if people, for example, come from the community and want to know where the new building is physically, we can say, okay, we can take a walk outside after and take a look at where it's going to go, that kind of stuff, because we'll have the architects there and stuff. So we thought the first one would be there, then we thought we'd rotate to go to other places and to other venues, all of our schools, probably Cushing second, just to have 2 home bases and then move around from there.
Gotcha. Perfect. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions or comments? Okay. Any other future agenda items? All right. Nothing?
No school tomorrow?
Oh.
Or next
For the
Monday?
kids.
Or next
We'll
Monday?
be
for the
here.
kids. Yeah,
For the
everyone
kids,
next
yeah.
Monday, right?
Homeschooling.
Whole school tomorrow. All right. We'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 7:35.
Second.
Second by Fenwick. You should do it a little bit here. Lindblom. Yes. Randallini, yes. Gates.
Yes.
Fenwick.
Yes.
Prokowski.
Yes.
All right, meeting is adjourned.